Welcome back to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. Today, we welcome back to the podcast Julia Lally for the second installment of our sexual health series. It's just been so great to interview her. Julia Lally is a self-proclaimed pleasure witch, a ferocious advocate for the power of your orgasm, a caller into being of your wild and deep, a full body embodiment mentor, a sex and empowerment coach for women and couples. She works often with women who are racked with the need to please, and menopause doesn't feel that sometimes. Women who are still bereft upon a life that gives an F about what people think about them. And that's why she is here, as an advocate for your power, to ask you, what would it mean for you personally to access the courage, tenacity, and sheer daring of who you know you actually are? What would it take for you to live that full out? What would it mean to be such a queen of your world? During the podcast, we talk about the famous, or infamous maybe, Jade egg. We go over its 5,000-year history as an ancient Taoist, Chinese sexual wellness tool. Taoism is a whole system of health, healing, and well-being. Incorporating sexuality into overall health. How the jade egg has gotten a bad rap as possibly unsanitary, but we don't apply the same level of scrutiny to our sex toys. How there's inherent risk in everything. The ripple effect of using the jade egg as directed to strengthen the pelvic floor. How total surrender in a sexual relationship can be freeing. Power of sexual healing in your whole life. The effect of the vagina as a consciousness. Female physical and chemical castration and how it causes life to be, well, flat. Breast massage as the best way to get ready to use the egg. The importance of self-permission. Now, stay to the end to find out all about the benefits of sexual opening and its ripple effect in your life. At the end of the episode, make sure you visit drmichellegordon.com/podcasts. There's an S on that, podcasts, where you can find the show notes, plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. And if you enjoy the episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you are always the first to know when new episodes are released. And thank you for all of the 5-star reviews. And if you haven't left a review yet, please go leave a review so that more women can find the Menopause Movement podcast. If you have any questions about the topics covered in this or any other podcast, I invite you to open a conversation with me on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Gordon, or send an email to info@menopausemovement.com. I promise I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now, let's get on to Julia and the jade egg and sexual opening. Thank you so much for being a part of the Menopause Movement. Julia, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be here again.
Yeah, so we talked quite a bit the last time you were here about the power of the feminine and the feminine sexuality. And what's interesting is that I spoke today. I had a Facebook Live because I don't know if you noticed, but my hair is very different from the last time you saw me.
I have noticed, yeah.
Yeah. So I did this thing where I shaved my head and I did it live. And it was really fun. And then the next day, it feels great. And then the next day I went and had a photo shoot.
Oh, lovely. Great stuff. So,
just to kind of help, because when I looked in the mirror, the first thing I saw was my brother.
right.
And so like my whole, identity as a woman was like, what? And then I went for the photo shoot and she did such a beautiful job of making me look feminine and fierce and fearless.
Yeah.
That I was like, yeah, this is great. I mean, this is the power of the feminine. I got called sir yesterday. And it was gentle. I was really gentle with the guy. I was like, I'm not a sir, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So I did this thing and it was really fun. It's something I've always wanted to do and I just never did because of societal norms. So today I had we've got a bonus podcast that's going to come out this week, just all about, societal norms and doing things. And, why is it that women can't have, a buzz cut, but men can? Men can wear man buns. And, so what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for permission? And I think this is a good segue into, what you teach, which is, empowerment of the feminine. And awesome. Feminine sexuality. So today, and I don't have any questions for you today because, we're bringing you back so soon and your podcast hasn't aired yet, the first one, but I wanted to talk, because we didn't get a chance to, I wanted to talk a little bit about the jade egg.
Sure thing.
When it comes to the jade egg, there's a couple things that really come to mind for me. Sure. And one of them is, what happened with Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. And so I'd like to hear your take on that, because you can't get the jade egg, there, because there was a big lawsuit. So I guess the first thing that, because there's probably not a lot of women who know what it is, let's just go ahead and start with what it is. Oh, it's a Yoni egg. It's made of
there
jade.
It is.
There it is.
Isn't
All
it
right.
Pretty? Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's very beautiful. Yeah. So there's your jade egg. So this is like a medium size, and you can get bigger ones especially, if you've had vaginal birth, then sometimes women can need a bigger egg, but medium sells to most people, I guess.
All right. Well, let's just start by saying that the jade egg is a way to increase the pelvic floor musculature, and you're supposed to put it inside your vagina and walk around with it. So let's start with the benefits that we think we're going to get from it, and why you recommend it, and all of the things. And we can also get into the woo of it all.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So I've got some notes here as well. So if I look down occasionally, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, no worries.
Essentially, the jade egg, you're absolutely right. You put it into your vagina. However, there's a whole other series of exercises around it as well, which it involves other things other than putting the egg inside your vagina. So it's a whole system which comes from Taoism. So it's kind of an ancient Chinese, ultimately sexual wellness tool. And so it works very much on a physical level, on a sexual level, and an energetic level. So that's where we can start hitting the woo. But when you talk about, so when you talk about kind of toning pelvic floor muscles and a lot of things that women are aware of, especially if they've had children, for example, and they're getting some incontinence, whatever, obviously everybody knows about Kegels, and so people are aware of pelvic floor exercises, and they're aware of the kind of physiological benefits of all that. But the jade egg is really so much more.
Right. Well, I do have a podcast that is all about the pelvic floor and the core and it's called Pelvic Floor and Core with Eric Azil. And so if you want to strengthen your pelvic floor, make sure you go and watch that one or listen to that one, because that's a good one, all about getting your core in shape.
Sure thing. Yeah. So as I say, there's kind of 3 different facets to it. And ultimately, the thing about this little tool is that, it was developed 5,000 years ago, right? So Taoism is ancient. And I think the really important thing to remember about Taoism is that it's a whole system of health and healing and well-being, not just sexuality. So what's really beautiful about their system is they include and incorporate sexuality into their system of well-being, if you like to the Taoist tantric tradition. Sexual energy is really core to fueling the well-being of the rest of the body.
Do they have also special exercises for men as well?
Well, obviously, Taoism is a whole system. And so, I'm not a practitioner or an expert in any kind of Taoist tantric exercises for men. I really want to know about this jade egg. Yeah. So the honest truth is I don't know about that. But if you were going to research into Taoist Tantra, Mantak Chia is the person to go after there. MAN.
How do you? Okay. M-A-N?
C-H-I-A-T-A-K.
T-A-K.
And then surname C-H-I-A.
Chia, like a chia
Yeah.
pet.
Or cheap. He's really a master in Qi. And so, in fact, the original Taoists apparently banned public knowledge of jade egg work, specifically because it was thought to be so powerful. Sexual energy was thought to be so revolutionary and powerful. Interesting. In some ways, I think that's completely correct. And in fact, some of the things about the jade egg practice works with the power of sexual energy and is respectful of it, which I really love. But Mantak Chia basically brought these exercises to the West. So a lot of the jade egg teachers you find out there have kind of come through his lineage, basically.
Uh-huh. And he was Chinese?
Yeah, he's still alive and he lives in Thailand now.
Okay.
Yeah, he
still
runs
alive.
a Taoist healing center out there.
So we put this jade egg inside of our hoo-ha, and it's supposed to help. But I have a couple questions about that. First of all, isn't jade porous?
Well, apparently not. I mean, one of the health issues with jade egg practice, obviously, that's been highlighted is that, little bacteria and that could get caught in there and cause infections. But there are different types of eggs. And like I learned I'm working on my certificate with Layla Martin, who learned through the Mantak Chia lineage. And she really only sells jade egg for that reason, because some people work with obsidian eggs and rose quartz eggs as well, and they do it around different phases of the moon, because of course it's a full moon tonight, just saying.
Oh,
and and traditionally,
feminine energy.
Right, here we are. In fact, I think we met on the dark moon last time, but I'm not sure if it was exact, but pretty much.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting? So yeah, so a lot of people work with rose quartz tonight on the full moon. But Layla, I'm pretty sure, decided not to sell obsidian or rose because they are slightly more porous. But jade is really not porous. And, we teach anyone who's worth their salt with jade egg will teach, how to clean and sanitize and make sure that, you're not going to give yourself an infection, basically. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just want to, highlight as a doctor that the vagina is not sterile. The urine is sterile, and so the one reason that women can get urinary tract infections in menopause comes from the fact that we're losing estrogen, and the urethra can actually, the urethral opening can be a little bit smaller, and so when you wipe, you might be bringing bacteria in. Even though we do the wiping away from the rectum and all that, you can still get bacteria in. And so one of the big concerns with the jade egg is that the egg gets inoculated with bacteria, and then you can get, group B strep, which can be deadly. I mean, that's toxic shock. So we have to be, if you're gonna buy a jade egg, I don't think you can buy them in America, but again, I don't know because I haven't ever looked at it. But if you're gonna buy one, then you want to make sure that you sterilize it. And is this one of the stones that you want to power by putting it outside in the full moon?
Well, to be honest, I've never done. I have
charge.
Never done.
That's the word.
Charge it.
Yeah.
I've never done that personally. Honestly, I really haven't. I mean, for me, it's I'm interested in. I'm quite attracted to the stone dildos. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
No.
But some people do put those out in the full moon. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, I'll give anything a go pretty much.
but aren't they cold?
Well, you warm them up. I mean, one of the things you do with jade egg is you put it in a cup of boiling water before you use it, and obviously you leave it to cool down. But so you wash it really well after you've used it, and then you can use iodine solution if you're worried about it to completely sterilize it. And then, of course, you heat it up with boiling water before you use it, and then let it cool down to a decent temperature.
Well, just as an aside about iodine solution is only is bactericidal when it's dry. And so if you let your jade eggs just sit in iodine, it's only bacteriostatic. It won't kill. Iodine, I'm a surgeon, So I know these
Yeah,
things.
you
So
know.
you have to let any iodine dry. So if you're going to put it in an iodine, the liquid iodine, betadine, I think is what it's called in the US, then you want to make sure that you take it out and let it dry.
That's great. A great thing to know. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So that's
That's
something that you can, if you're telling people to use iodine, you want to make sure that you tell them to let it dry because it's only bacteriostatic, and so it doesn't kill unless it's dry.
yeah. And yet at the same time, obviously, while we have to be respectful and careful and practical around bacteria and cleanliness and, treating our bodies with care, nobody really goes to the same degree of worry about sex toys, for example, so
That's true.
there's a huge amount of sex toys out there on the market, and it's like, which ones of those are safe or not, So,
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that there are some, if you're using, a dildo or something like that. I mean, there are a lot of them will say, on the insert that comes with it or on the website, if you go to Lilo or something like that, they do give you cleaning instructions, and the ones that don't have a lot of electronics inside of them, you can just put in the dishwasher. And I think you can put your Jade egg in the dishwasher probably too.
No doubt you could also do that. But I
Yeah.
kind of feel like, look, 5,000 years old, this little thing is ready to go to market. It's like, it's pretty tried and tested. If
Yeah.
if you think about, even, a lot of pharmaceutical medicines, it's like there's risk involved in almost everything that we do or
Yeah.
ingest. And this little baby's got 5,000 years behind it,
That's true. That's true. All right, but do you give people a disclaimer when you sell it?
I don't. I should possibly think about that because I do actually ship to the States. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I should probably think about doing such a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, you can refer them to this. We talk all about how to clean it before we even talk about the benefits.
yeah. And
Yeah.
if you buy a Jade egg from me, you get the first 2 modules of my Jade course for free. So it covers the basic foundationals. And in
Oh, that's
there is
great.
a lot of information about how to clean. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk about the pelvic floor is part of the core. We know this. We've talked about this with Erica Zeal. And in order to strengthen the pelvic floor, those are the muscles that are really involved in sexual expression, right? And when you free those up from, whatever mental constraints you have, and then on top of that, free your body because you're strengthening it, what kind of ripple effect does that have in a woman's life?
Well, it's absolutely huge. I mean, I can feel a sense of energy and even turn on as you ask that question because it's massive, really. So, obviously, as you begin to free parts of the vagina, and when we're talking about strengthening, obviously, we're not talking about tightening. I'm sure Erica would have gone into this, but we're talking about toning. So you want your pelvic floor and your uterine and your vaginal muscles, you want all your sex organs to be toned and healthy. So you want kind of dexterity there, you want suppleness, you want sensation. You're not looking for tightness.
So I think this is really important because as a surgeon, when I was in training, I saw plenty of gynecologic surgery.
Right.
And one of the big differences really between general surgeons and gynecologists or obstetricians, but mostly the gynecologists, is that they do vaginal surgery. I mean, we don't operate on the vagina. There's a lot of other differences. I mean, gynecologists operate on 2 organs, the uterus and, the vagina and the ovaries. So we kind of laugh about it as general surgeons because there's only 2 organs there. But at the same time, when I've seen when I was a resident or an intern, I can't remember, but I watched some sort of a vaginal, pessary or something like that, where the woman had, everything was falling out. And at the end of it, the surgeon put a couple stitches in her vagina to make it tighter. And he actually said this will make her husband happy, which at the time I thought was so inappropriate. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about iodine is that, oftentimes as surgeons we'll pack with iodine gauze, right? And so if you put your Jade egg in iodine and then you put it inside, you may get some burning, because some people find iodine to be kind of a burning sensation. But I think that because sexuality and almost everything, I mean, medicine, we could just go in, it goes on and on. Everything is geared towards men.
Yeah.
And, and we talked about this the last time, but when everything is geared toward men, women, are only exist for the men's pleasure. And so for us to realize that we do a jade egg so that we can have more pleasure, not so that we can tighten up to squeeze the penis more.
Oh my God, so true, so true. I mean, if I'm ever working with like heterosexual couples, because obviously I work with couples of all persuasions, but if I'm ever working with heterosexual couple, I'll say to the guy, look, it can be some variant of this. Do you want a tight pussy, or do you want total ecstatic surrender of your partner? I mean, what do you want? It's like, which is better? And no one's ever said a tight pussy. I mean, all the men who come wanting to improve their relationships and their sex lives with their partners, they know what a woman in deep surrender is capable of, and that's what they want. That's what everybody wants, right?
Yeah.
And you really get that by being respectful of a woman's pleasure. So it makes me
that's really key.
Surgeon says something like that, because it's not that it makes me angry, which of course it makes me angry to hear something like that. It's like, that men don't know the prison they're living in. If that's all they want, if he's like, oh, I've nicked your vagina, so it's better for your husband, and they're like, result, it's like, no, somebody needs to blow their mind open.
That's where you come in.
Yeah. That's it. That's my note.
No, that's great. So let's talk about this. What if the jade egg is to increase the pleasure of the woman?
Mm-hmm.
How does it lead to total surrender in a sexual relationship?
I think what I want to say about that is that, when we spoke last time, I mentioned like the 3 stages of orgasm kind of system that I teach, right? We talked about like the initial stage, the kind of the basic, the gentle opening, reclaiming. And we talked about the mastery, which is the surrender, the ecstasy, the kind of the use of the fuel that is sexual energy into all areas of our life for empowerment. Where I tend to teach jade egg is that place in the middle. So it's like, okay, we've begun to develop a relationship with our bodies again. We've slowed down. We're kind of giving approval to our sex as she is. And then the jade egg is just a fantastic tool to start playing with the edges of that, So of course, there's surrender in that in terms of climax experience and exploring different areas of your sex organs and different types of climax, and also beginning to explore energetics of sexual energy as well. So it's like, before we get to kind of divine surrender, there's still, which is a devotional path in itself, I think, there's still a huge amount of ground in the middle there, which is, jade egg helps build sexual energy. So if you think about that as fuel for your life and your health and your well-being, not just your sex, that's kind of how I teach the jade egg.
That's cool.
That answer your question?
Yeah, it's, there's a whole ripple effect of affecting your life. So when you have good sexual health, it can affect your whole life.
Well, should we talk about that a little bit? Because I
think we should.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, there's have you read Naomi Wolf's book, Vagina?
No. Okay. It's so funny. I was so repressed for so long. And, growing up in white Christian America, where, women are supposed to be subject to their husbands. And, then I got married in the 80s and I was subject to him. And I was like, I don't want to be a subject to anybody, you know, and, and, that didn't work out. And, trying to claim my power, but, and then having a sexual abuse background and trying to reconcile that with my own, who am I and what, what does that mean? And, is sexuality power, or is it surrender, or is it some
Yeah.
sort of a something in between? And so for me, sexual expression, I mean, I have to say I've got the best wife in the world, because she waited for me for 5 years. I was not,
Yeah.
I lost my sexuality for
Yeah.
5 years. Now I'm blushing.
Oh,
Like
that's
I'm
that's
turning all red.
yeah.
Yeah. So she just waited, and then, when I got my like thyroid fixed and I got my head straight, my sexuality came back with a vengeance, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And we had a great vacation.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
lovely story though. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
So the ripple effect of a healthy sex life. I mean, when you're feeling fulfilled sexually, I just, it just, there's so much power there. So I'd love to hear, how you wake women up to the power of their own sexuality, and
Well,
how the jade egg fits in with that.
sure thing. Well, I highly recommend Naomi Wolf's book, Vagina. And I'd love to
Okay.
talk about that a little bit, because
Sure.
and I just know that you're going to resonate with this. She argues that the vagina, or woman's sexuality, is, this is mind blowing, it's intrinsic to her consciousness.
I
Okay,
could see
so,
that. I can
well,
see that, especially with what we've learned about how we're wired, how each organ has its own brain, that really then, and then as you do, Kundalini yoga, right, is to get the soul out of the body, and kind of make, awaken the pineal gland, and get us aware of the whole, that we're a part of this big cosmic consciousness. And so I can see how awakening that and kind of getting in touch with that works.
absolutely. And she came across this kind of theory when basically she had some kind of spinal injury that she didn't know about. It was just getting worse over the years. And she had a really vibrant, great sex life, and, enjoyed the kind of state of consciousness that put her into, when you've got a vibrant sex life and you just feel more awake to the world. And she said, what happened was the spinal column started to compress the nerves. And no doubt you'll know that there's lots of nerves around different parts of our vagina and uterus, and but
Yeah.
there's nerves around that mass around the cervix, the G-spot, all of these different places.
Yes, but the
And
pudendal nerve is the nerve that is responsible for orgasm.
there we go. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that pudendal nerve will communicate with the autonomic nervous system, and will
Yeah.
send messages to the brain. And the brain will then release all the feel good. So the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonins, all of that stuff, and testosterone as well is in the picture. So what Naomi Wolf said was that when her spinal injury blocked the signals from the nerve up into her brain, her whole state of consciousness changed. So life became flatter. She felt depressed. She just didn't care as much. She was less alive. The interesting thing was that she worked a lot with rape victims, and she may still do actually, but she talks about how survivors of sexual abuse and rape victims, for example, it's like she recognized in them a similar thing, like the light had gone off somewhere, and there was a kind of disconnect between this healthy flow from sexual experience through the nerves into the brain. And so she began to really research about the effect of the vagina on consciousness then. It's like if we have a dopamine and oxytocin producing machine that or organ, when you think about the suppression of feminine sexuality, you are literally suppressing a woman's well-being. And if you're repressing a woman's well-being, you're repressing her power, because she doesn't want to do, you just want to sit around, feeling crap about her life, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that the reason why there is female circumcision?
Well, yeah, I believe so.
I mean, that's part of it. Let's take away the power of women,
Totally.
and the power. I mean, and men don't want to have, historically, not all men. So if you're a man and watching this, I'm not attacking you, but historically, especially these, really extremist religions that keep, make women cover their heads and cover their everything but their eyes, and because men don't trust themselves and they're just going to go after them because of the power of the feminine wiles, you know.
Well, it is so interesting. I mean, this is where Naomi Wolf says, rape as a weapon of war is basically a technique. She says it's a form of castration. It cuts women off from themselves, literally.
Well, not just women, though. It's really funny because one of the techniques that was used to, break slaves in the, during slavery time was the rape of men.
Yes. She does mention the rape of men. She just says that it's much less common, but yeah, it has a similar effect.
Yeah.
And obviously in nations it's a problem. Yeah.
Any sort of sexual abuse to children, I think, and I can speak to that as a, survivor of that. Everyone I know who had some sort of sexual encounter as a child has had, that was repeated. I mean, one thing, maybe not so big, but again, I don't know. It depends on the circumstance. But for me and for people that I know, it creating lasting relationships it can just break everything. And so to find it, to have the ability to heal this, I definitely going to recommend this book. I'm going to read this book and probably talk about it on a future podcast. But the other thing is that, antidepressants.
Yeah.
Antidepressants, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So that's the Prozacs and any of the ones that are along that line. They're often used in menopause to control hot flashes, right? Yeah. But what the side effect is inability to climax.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like a castration in a sense. It's a chemical castration. And so it just hit me when you were talking about that, like how dull the world is without orgasm. And to imagine, just not being, just trying and trying and trying and trying and then not being able to get there because of the chemical castration from.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I completely agree. It's pretty hardcore, isn't it, really?
It is. Yeah.
And so all those things you talk about in terms of the trauma or the things that need to heal. I mean, the really good news is that we can heal. You're an example of that. Talking about having your wonderful holiday with your wife, like they coming back from that kind of thing, and just on the ride of it again. When you work with the jade egg, you can begin to soften, deprogram and de-armor points of tension within your vaginal muscles. So cervical de-armoring is a really big thing in Tantra, for example. And I love to use the egg for these things because you can, if it's a pain that it feels so good, it's like when someone's got to a knot and you're just like, oh, that place, it's like, it can be very emotional, it can be painful, but it's like, it's a pain that feels like it's moving something at last, so, that's just one of the aspects of the egg that you can use to help repair. I mean, when you think about, a lot of the exercises that you do with a jade egg, they're all also flooding the area with blood supply, right? So you're looking at tissue repair and waking up nerves just on a physiological level. You're going to be increasing sensation.
When you get more blood to an area, you're going to have more healing. And that's, and so if you're a woman who has, had some vaginal atrophy or has had, obviously we don't recommend the jade egg for a woman who's in vaginal atrophy, but we do recommend that you do some exercises to increase blood flow to the area. So let's say for the women who really can't tolerate even, like digital manipulation. So even a small finger into the vagina, because number one, they're dry. Number two, they're atrophied. How do you recommend that they get some blood flow to start healing that area?
Yeah. Well, this is when I mentioned at the beginning that the jade egg is like a whole system. It's not just putting that inside yourself. For example, the Taoists, in fact, you can get this for free from my website, which I'll talk to you about that at the end. But there are a whole bunch of what they call foundational exercises, which involve warming up your body and warming up your sex before you even think about inserting anything into the vagina. So one of those exercises, for example, the one you can get from my website, is breast massage. And you see, energetically, according to the Taoist, the heart center, which is the breast and connected to the heart, is deeply connected to your cervix, okay, and to your sex organs. So, in fact, it is so interesting how science catches up with us, because, in fact, if people opt into my breast massage file, they get this through the email trails. I deliver them the article I'm talking about, where they measured MRI scans of nipple stimulation, light up the exact same areas in the brain as sexual stimulation of the genitals. Isn't that interesting?
Sure. Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me at all. And because if you think about it, what causes milk letdown?
Yeah.
What causes milk letdown? It's oxytocin.
Oxytocin. Yeah.
Yeah. And so any woman who's I love breastfeeding. My favorite part of having a baby was breastfeeding, and the feeling of the milk coming down, the fact that there was this whole instinctual thing, like a baby would cry and it would just come down. I had zero control over it. And it would just, and I was like a moo cow, right? I mean, I had so much milk. And so my breasts were so engorged in the morning. And then I would be, I'd have to wear like pads, and then I'd be somewhere where there was a baby and it would start to drip, and I'd just apologize. I'd have these big old,
I love
spots
it
on my shirt.
Yeah.
But I tell you, there's nothing like that feeling. It's so uniquely feminine, and I felt so good about that. And it's not a feeling I'll ever forget. I mean, my son's 27 next month, and it was just, and I never had another child, but that feeling of breast milk coming down and being able to, feed another human and help them grow. I mean, I know that was a little bit of a rant, but
no, I totally agree. It's very beautiful. And if you focus on, like, some people who've done Jade Egg courses with me, the breast massage is their favorite thing. You can do it. It's such a gorgeous way to connect, and you can get that feeling, probably not as strongly as when you breastfeed, obviously, but you can get a kind of a soupçon of that feeling, into your body, and you can feel your vagina. Here's the critical thing: you can feel your vagina start to wake up. Yeah. And so the Chinese, they would never put the egg in. They wouldn't even get close until you spent at least 10 or 15 minutes warming up your breast to begin with. So in terms of people, women who have got issues that are so significant that they might struggle to put the egg in, honestly, you just go slower. So start with a breast massage. How many women I've taught this thing, and for a start, we get everyone to use lube. So it doesn't even matter.
Think?
It's like, it doesn't even matter if. Say that again.
I said, you think? I mean, you're going to put something in there. You got to kind of use a little lube, I would expect.
Well, that's it. And so, but you'd be amazed how many women who are experiencing vaginal dryness beat themselves up about that. And I'm just like, hey, look, whatever, just get some lube. Not everybody allows themselves that, And then you get to put this in, of course. And, all the women are like, okay, right, here we go. Now I'm really doing Jade Egg. And one of the first things we start with is self-consent. Okay, so it's a radical thing for a woman. It's like, okay, look, you can just put this to the mouth of your vagina and ask. Just ask permission. Does she want it?
And that's amazing. I love this so much.
I know. There's always at least one or two women in a group who are like, oh, bloody hell, she's saying no every time, I paid all this money.
Wait. In a group, are you saying that you're all sitting around together and like?
Yeah. Well,
so
how I tend
to. Okay, I don't think I could do that. That's so personal and private for me.
Yeah, there's different levels. I mean, people, you can coach with me individually. I can coach you through the session, so you're actually using the Jade Egg while I'm coaching you, or not everybody's comfortable with that. You go away and you practice on your own with the recordings. In a group setting, I tend to lead group jade egg sessions. Most people turn off their camera and there's sound. Okay, so essentially I'm leading them through a masturbation ritual, if you like.
I got it.
Yeah, but nobody, I'm not in the room with anyone. And some people are even uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
You know, other people will do jade egg rituals live in a circle with 20 women. So, you know, it just really depends where
I can imagine that it would be very freeing.
Yeah.
You know, for me to acknowledge my sexuality in front of a whole bunch of women and just be, you know, I mean, how is that different from a circle jerk?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, in a sense.
Because I mean, I don't have any judgment about any of those things, by the way. It's like, you know, if that's what people, if they enjoy that and they want to do that. But ultimately, for me, there is a ritualistic element about it, which I don't know. Here we sound very woo-woo, but to me, it feels like Church of Pussy. It's like, okay, I'm just here and I know this, you know, it just feels.
I mean, I can see that a circle jerk might be a little bit more, I mean, that's so masculine. And if you're going to be in the feminine, it's going to be a lot more, there's a lot more opening. There's so much opening that comes with the feminine energy.
Exactly.
You know, and that's very different from what men do. But one thing I wanted to get back to, and I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I think it's a really good thing to mention. You know, we're taught a male God growing up, right? We're taught about everything coming from a male perspective. So, I mean, I had 3 brothers growing up, and there was so much masculinity in my house that I still to this day sometimes view myself as masculine, as a man, as male, just because I was inundated with it so much. And then to get to the point where giving, and this I think was the big powerful thing for me, was giving myself permission to just be feminine.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't have to be masculine. I'm female. And when I had gender confusion, and I was like, it's not fair because the guys get everything and they can move through, you know, the world so much easier and all of that. And then I got pregnant. I got pregnant. I was like, and because I'll be honest, when I got married in my 20s, I wasn't sure, am I really female? And I know I've got the parts, but am I really female? So I got married when I was 23, got pregnant when I was 29, and something shifted in me. And I was like, okay, I really am.
Yeah.
I really am. And it was like, and I was in this really like horrible, abusive, kind of manipulative, weird, you know, gaslighting kind of relationship. And I was like, oh, and I pulled my energy back. That was probably the beginning of the end for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
So it was, just, and it's funny because like, this is almost therapeutic just talking to you about it, but I remember, but I remember that feeling of like, I have a life inside me. I am fully feminine and I have to accept this.
Right. Well, obviously, you know, there is a spectrum and everybody's experience is hugely different and unique.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, one of my biggest coaching tools is just full approval, you know, wherever somebody's at. And I identify as a woman. I feel like a woman. And I don't even know what that means. You know, it's just something I've always taken for granted. You know, saying that, I was always very tomboyish, and I still definitely have those qualities. I personally love the whole Tantra idea of masculine and feminine energies. Some people really are averse to it, and they feel that it's constrictive for along gender lines. But for me, I view almost everything as penetration or surrender. So whether we're having a conversation, you know, whether I'm either kind of in my penetrative, right, I'm out, I've got my life goals, I'm on a mission, I'm working out to do Facebook advertising, all those things, or I'm in my devotional, you know, okay, yeah, I'm, you know, my more feminine, more surrendered, more receptive place. That's the place that really takes work in me, if I'm honest. And
Yeah.
I think it's been really abused and violated so in so many ways, on so many levels throughout history, with no
Well,
wonder it's
yeah.
hard for us to reclaim it.
I remember growing up thinking, I can't wear that. It's going to be too provocative, or he's whistling at me and
Mm.
it's my fault. And, all of those things that we're taught in society, it's her fault she got raped because she wore something, or,
Yeah,
she provoked him, or she started and then said no. And it was, and he couldn't control himself.
yeah, yeah,
And it's just like we're taught that men can't control themselves, but it's the woman's responsibility. But on top of that, we have to be virginal.
yes, it's a pretty effed up message, full stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
women, through reclaiming their sexuality, though, I really do believe women are reclaiming their power and beginning to really, I mean, I don't want to dismiss any, gendered violence exists. It's a massive problem. I understand that. But I do believe that, and male privilege is massive. It's like it exists. But generally speaking, I do really believe that men want to serve. They just they can't necessarily see how to.
Yeah. I can see that. And it's funny because I've seen, Tony Robbins does some work with masculine, feminine, but he does it in the context of, of the Christian kind of
Mm,
norms, where,
mm.
he talks about how, you're gonna lead your woman and things like that. So he does really go after the masculine, but there's a lot of traditional gender roles that he pushes that I don't agree with, but some people do. And I think it works because he's able to, I mean, with all of his, master NLP stuff, get people to do instantaneous behavior change. And in reality, I mean, the more, if you're in a relationship with someone, the more you serve the other, the more free you're going to be. And it's
Well,
it's such
yeah,
a paradox.
that is really, really true. I think that's the feminine right there in an essence. But I
Yeah.
suppose what I'm trying to say about all this sexual reclamation is that, we kind of, there are ways in which we haven't been showing up to men either, and I think that those ways are really beginning to change.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, as someone who does not, have sex with men anymore, it's hard for me to kind of relate to that, but I think my audience will relate
Mm.
to that. But I think there's a whole point of us not showing up at all, whether it's showing up for men or whether it's showing up for ourselves or showing up for our friends or because we, we've been living in this area, this whole, I mean, what would Eckhart Tolle call it? A pain body, right? A pain body of repression of the feminine. And
Yeah,
we're starting to really kind of come into our own and
yeah.
claim it.
I totally agree. And generally speaking, again, like generalizing, men have been taught not to feel, and women have been taught
Yeah.
not to speak.
Yeah.
So, in terms of a lot of the desire work and the sexual work that I do with women, a lot of it is to do with tuning in and asking for what you want. It's totally terrifying. It's
Yeah.
terrifying because you
Yeah.
break down that conditioning, and you start claiming what you want.
Well, there's a whole bunch of surrender that has to go into even being able to listen to what your body wants.
Exactly that. And that's something else I'd just like to touch on, that it's really, sexual energy is hugely powerful. It's something that the Taoists knew, that I suppose I feel like I'd love your listeners to really take note of, which is that when you begin to wake up your body and you begin to wake up your sexual energy, you can have really profound openings. And here's the thing, you don't need to have massive, powerful, profound openings to do this work,
Yeah.
especially if there's trauma, because it's learning to open and expand your range at the same time as maintaining self-regulation and groundedness is hugely important. And lots of sexual teachers or spiritual teachers will override that. And it goes for a weak point in human beings because we want the ecstasy, we want the thing at the end, we want the 100,000 followers, and it's like, doing the gentle step by step so our bodies can actually deal with having it is the work.
Yeah.
And the Chinese really knew that. So part of the jade egg practice is you will claim and feel, you learn to feel, and you also learn to accelerate and grow the sexual energy, because they believe that Jing, one of their energy forms, was ultimately fed by sexual energy. So they knew sex as a nutrient, thousands of years ago. But they also have exercises where you can't just amplify that energy and then go to work. I mean you can, but I've seen the disasters of people who do that unconsciously. I've seen suicide attempts, I've seen people sectioned. It's like, if you want to blow yourself open, be careful. Right, it's like, I don't recommend it. So the Chinese have all sorts of exercises where, yes, we can start to tune in, we can start to amplify that energy, and we learn exercises to pack it down into the dantian or the power center. So it's like a slow burning furnace that we can kind of use in a grounded way, rather than huge explosions. That's, if you think of anyone who's like a martial artist, like a master, they've got a huge amount of energy, but it's contained and it's not spilling out everywhere.
Yeah, that's really, really, I mean, I suppose if you started doing this work irresponsibly and, all of a sudden had a huge opening, that could really be a big change in your life. So just as a word of caution, ladies, do this carefully. And don't.
But I would say
gentle.
Be trauma aware. Yeah. Always calibrate gently.
Yeah. Well, Julia, our time is up again, and it's just gone so fast. And so I think we're going to have to meet again next week to bring you back on, And so I'm so excited that this is so exciting. What's that?
I said we didn't even talk about goop.
I know. It's okay. We'll come back and talk about goop another time. Or goop, right? You're talking about Gwyneth Paltrow's company?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, just, they can't sell the jade egg because there was some lawsuit, and you can look it up online. It's pretty obvious what happened there, but a lot of unrealistic claims. And I think there were some infections. But so if you have any questions for Julia, you can send them to info@menopausemovement.com, and we will get to them with the next podcast. And I love this sexual health series that we're doing. And I think that, it'd be great if we could have you back again, especially if, once we start getting more questions. I think we're going to have a lot of questions.
Oh,
You're going to quickly become the #1 podcast on the Menopause Movement podcast, I'm sure.
I'd be really happy to come on live with your listeners, if you want something like that as well. Yeah.
We can probably do that. We could do a Monday morning live together. And then I also think that, one of the benefits of coming to Menopause Movement Live in Manchester on the 25th of April is going to be the ability to get a jade egg. Whether or not Julia can be there will be dependent upon what's happening in the world with the current pandemic of the coronavirus. However, we will definitely have them available with a little bit of an instruction manual. So if you want to understand how to use the jade egg, make sure that you come to Menopause Movement Live in Manchester on the 25th of April, and we'll make those affordable for you. All right. So Julia, thanks again so much. And, I really appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. I have such a good time every time we chat. So
that's great. All right. I think I'm going to hire you as a coach.
Oh, well, my goodness, it didn't occur, but of course we can have that conversation.
Yeah. I think I'm going to, and, for the listeners who are still watching, thanks for still watching, but I'll let you know how things go with Julia, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm ready to kind of step to the next level of my own sexuality. And that's a big step for me.
Yeah, no doubt. And, if you want to have a chat with me about that, then you can book through my website. Yeah. And then we'll have a kind of specific hour on what you might want to achieve.
Hey, listen, maybe it'll be a podcast.
Oh my goodness, that's brave. Yeah.
I would be, listen, my life's an open book. There's not a whole lot I'm afraid to talk about. So I think it
That
would be,
sounds like an awesome
we
book.
can crack open the code of silence around sexuality and menopause and all those things. So
beautiful. That's really brave and very humble. And I'm sure your viewers, listeners would really get a lot from that.
Well, if you are listening, if you've stayed to the end for this, if you want me to go ahead and be one of Julia's clients and come to you live with my own, sexual weirdnesses, I'm happy to do that, but I want you to let me know. So make sure you send me an email at info@menopausemovement.com. All right. All right, Julia, thanks again so much.
Yeah. Okay. Lots of love. Take care then. Have a good trip.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.